My name is Jocelyn Remington. I'm 36 years old. I live in Utah, and I'm the mother of a bright, funny 6-year-old girl named Ilara. I thought I had a stable life. I thought I had a marriage built on trust, on partnership. But I was wrong. One Sunday afternoon, everything changed. Astrid, my sister-in-law, burst through my back door, dragging her son, Gideon, behind her. She pointed a trembling finger at me and screamed, "You hit my son." I blinked. What? I had been in the kitchen the entire time, prepping snacks for Ilara. Astrid shoved Gideon forward like a shield. "Tell her," she hissed. Gideon looked at the floor and mumbled, "She slapped me." My heart stopped. I hadn't even spoken to the boy that day. Then my husband, Bennett, appeared in the doorway. He looked at me like I was a stranger. "You've always had a temper," he said. Just like that, I was condemned. No evidence, no questions, no hesitation. The man I'd shared my life with believed his sister's lie without blinking. And worse, he acted like it made sense. That's when I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was an attack. And I had no idea how deep the betrayal really went. But I was about to find out. Before all of this, people used to say we had a solid little life. Bennett and I had been married for almost 10 years. We weren't flashy, but we were steady. We lived in a modest home outside Salt Lake City. Brick exterior, white shutters, a creaky old swing Bennett never got around to fixing. Our daughter Ilara made it feel alive. She loved to paint sidewalk chalk galaxies on our driveway and pretend she was the mayor of her own tiny world. I cooked, Bennett mowed the lawn. We weren't perfect, but we had our rhythm. And then Astrid moved back into the picture. She'd recently divorced her second husband. No one was surprised, and temporarily moved in with Bennett's mother, Marlene, who lived just 3 streets over. "It's just until she gets back on her feet," Bennett said. Astrid didn't knock when she came over. She'd just swing open the back door like it was hers and step in with Gideon in tow. Gideon was 7, loud, impulsive, and borderline feral. He once smeared peanut butter into our ceiling fan to see what would happen. I tried to be patient. I really did. I knew Astrid was struggling and Gideon was just a kid. But Astrid, she thrived on chaos. She floated from crisis to crisis, always painting herself as the victim. Bennett and his mom bought into it every time. They'd talk about her like she was some fragile bird who'd been battered by life, not someone who left wreckage behind her everywhere she went. Still, I played nice. I smiled through her unannounced visits, wiped juice off my floors, and picked up after Gideon when he tore through the living room like a whirlwind. I told myself it was temporary. I had no idea she was laying a trap. It was a Sunday afternoon like any other. Ilara was in her room working on a drawing of a dragon with rainbow wings. I was in the kitchen slicing apples and cantaloupe for her snack, humming to myself. The back door slammed open. Astrid stood there, breathing hard, clutching Gideon's wrist like she'd dragged him through a battlefield. His cheeks were red, but not swollen. Just the kind of red you get when you've been crying on command. "You hit my son," she shrieked. The knife slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," she snapped. She shoved Gideon toward me. "Tell her." Gideon looked down at his sneakers and sniffled. She slapped me." I stared at him, stunned. "I didn't even see you today, Gideon. You yelled at me because I spilled juice, then you hit me." I hadn't even been near him. I'd asked him earlier not to jump on the couch, and that was it. Bennett rushed in from the hallway, his face tight with confusion. "What's going on?" Astrid whipped around. "Ask your wife why your nephew's crying." Bennett looked at me. I waited for him to say something, anything to defend me, but he didn't. Instead, he crossed his arms and said, "You've always had a temper. Did you lose it this time?" I blinked. "Bennett, are you serious right now?" "I'm just asking." My heart dropped. Not because Astrid was accusing me, but because Bennett didn't hesitate. He didn't pull me aside or even ask what happened. He just believed her. I swore on Ilara's life that I hadn't touched Gideon. Astrid called me a liar to my face. Bennett said nothing. An hour later, Marlene showed up. She walked into my kitchen like she owned it, didn't even glance at me before saying, "For the sake of the children, I think you should leave for a few days." "No," I said flatly. "This is my home." "You're upsetting the family," she said in that cold, matriarchal tone she always used when she wanted to sound reasonable but be cruel. "Distressing the children." "You weren't here," I said. "You don't know what happened." "I know Astrid," she said simply. That told me everything. They'd already made up their minds. Truth didn't matter. I was guilty because I didn't coddle them, because I wasn't one of them. I thought that would be the worst of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, Child Protective Services showed up at my door. When I opened the door and saw the woman in a charcoal gray blazer holding a leather binder, my stomach dropped. "Mrs. Remington?" she asked in a tone that was professional but not unkind. "Yes," I managed to say, though my voice felt like it had to claw its way out of my throat. "My name is Detective Ariana Vance. I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a report alleging that you may have physically harmed your nephew. I need to ask you a few questions and also check in on your daughter if she's home." My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. "I didn't do anything," I said quickly, maybe too quickly. "I swear I never laid a hand on him." She nodded, calm and non-confrontational. "That's what we're here to determine. If that's the case, I just need to gather information and get a complete picture." I stepped aside, letting her in. Ilara was in her room, humming softly as she lined up her colored markers in perfect rainbow order. Ariana peeked in and greeted her with a warm smile. "Hi there, sweetie. Just wanted to say hello." Ilara beamed. "I'm drawing a seahorse dragon." Ariana smiled back. "That sounds magical." She turned to me. "She looks happy and healthy. That's a good sign." But her words didn't soothe the storm in my chest. I poured her a glass of water, but my hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the pitcher. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and opened her binder. "Tell me what happened that day," she said. I tried to explain, but my words stumbled. I was still in disbelief myself. How do you convince someone of a truth so obvious it shouldn't need explaining? Then it hit me. The camera. 2 years ago, Bennett installed a motion-activated camera facing our backyard in the sliding door. It was mostly for watching Ilara when she played outside, never meant for security, but that might have been its purpose all along. "I might have something," I said, bolting upright and rushing to grab my laptop. Ariana leaned in as I pulled up the video feed from that afternoon. The footage was grainy but clear enough to show what mattered. There was Gideon, alone in the living room. He spilled something, red juice all over the floor. He glanced toward the hallway like he was waiting for someone. Then Astrid appeared. She knelt beside him, whispered something I couldn't make out. Gideon nodded, and then, plain as day, she slapped him across the face. Ariana gasped, covering her mouth. Oh my God! I felt nothing. Not shock, not anger, just hollow silence. Ariana clicked forward in the footage. That's when it happened. Astrid turned her head and looked directly at the camera. She smiled, not sheepishly, not like she'd forgotten it was Mare. No, this was something else entirely. She smiled like she had planned this. Ariana looked at me, her face tightening. She knew it was recording. I nodded. She stood slowly, her voice shifting to something firmer. "I need to make some phone calls. Stay calm, don't say anything to her or your husband yet." Then she left me sitting there with nothing but the image of Astrid's cold grin burned into the screen. It wasn't just a lie anymore, it was a calculated takedown. Bennett came home late that night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my closed laptop, heart still hammering from everything Detective Vance had confirmed. I didn't even look up when I heard his keys drop into the bowl by the door. He walked in casually like it was any other night.
"Astrid called me," he said. "She said you're trying to twist everything around, that you edited some video to frame her." I stood up slowly. My voice was flat. "You want to see the footage?" He hesitated. "What footage?" I opened the laptop and hit play. He watched in silence, no blinking, no interruptions, just quiet as the truth unfolded in front of him. When Astrid's hand struck her own son's cheek, I saw his jaw twitch. When she looked into the camera and smiled, he went pale. I paused the video. She hit him. Then she told him to lie, and you believed her. Bennett sank into the chair like someone had knocked the wind out of him. I didn't know. I thought... You thought what? I snapped. That I'd hit a child and then lie about it? That I'd put Ilara at risk like that? His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. You let your sister and your mother treat me like a monster. You let them turn our home into a courtroom. And you didn't even ask me what happened. He stared at the table. And I realized in that moment he wasn't just weak, he was complicit. But the worst wasn't even over yet. The next day, Detective Vance called again. Her voice was tense. We reviewed more of the footage. There's something else, a segment you might not have seen. My chest tightened. What is it? There's a moment where your husband walks into frame. He's talking to Astrid. She says, "Don't worry, I'll handle it. She'll be gone by tomorrow." I closed my eyes. And Bennett responds, "Just make sure it looks real." That's when it stopped being betrayal and started becoming conspiracy. After I hung up with Detective Vance, I sat frozen on the couch replaying those words over and over. Just make sure it looks real. He said that. Bennett, the man I married, the father of my daughter. He didn't just fail to protect me, he helped plan my removal. I wasn't just betrayed, I had been targeted. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in Ilara's room watching her chest rise and fall, thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't remembered to camera. How far would they have taken it? Would I have lost custody, my job, my sanity? By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed a lawyer. Veronica Sterling came highly recommended, a sharp, no-nonsense family attorney known for handling high-conflict cases. When I met her at her office the next day, I expected paperwork in process. Instead, I got steel. She listened without interrupting. I showed her the footage, handed over the report from CPS, and gave her every sickening detail I knew. When I finished, she sat back and folded her arms. "You're sitting on a landmine," she said. "They didn't just lie, they tried to engineer your disappearance. That's legal warfare, and we fight it head-on." Veronica moved fast. That same afternoon, she coordinated with Detective Vance to schedule a second interview with Gideon, this time with a child psychologist present. Veronica warned me not to get my hopes up too high, but deep down I had a feeling. Kids are impulsive, sure, but they know when something's wrong, and I was right. Gideon cracked under pressure. He admitted that Astrid had hit him, told him to lie, and said, "Aunt Jocelyn will go away for a while, but you'll be okay." He even mentioned Bennett. Uncle Bennett said Mommy would help make things quiet again. When I got the call from CPS that evening, I felt like the air had been sucked from the room. This wasn't just about family dysfunction, it was a coordinated attack. CPS immediately flagged Astrid's behavior as manipulative and abusive. They began the process of removing her from Gideon's custody while the investigation unfolded. She had no idea what was coming. The following day, everything escalated. Bennett's coworker Holden called me out of nowhere. We barely knew each other, so I knew something had to be wrong. He said, "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Bennett's been talking about leaving town, said things with you were going to get messy and he had to be strategic." My heart dropped. He was going to run, maybe even tried to take Ilara. I called Veronica immediately. "He's planning something, I know it."
Without missing a beat, she filed for emergency custody and a temporary restraining order. We couldn't risk waiting. The next morning, we beat him to the courthouse. By the time Bennett came home, bags packed and Ilara's backpack in his hand, the police were already waiting. Bennett stepped through the front door with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and Ilara's tiny pink backpack in the other. He froze when he saw the two officers standing in the hallway.
What is this?" he stammered. I stood behind them, calm but unshakable. "You were going to take her. You were going to disappear." He looked genuinely stunned for a second. Then his face twisted into that wounded, performative look I'd come to recognize. "You did this to us?" he snapped. "No," I said coldly. "You did this to me." One of the officers stepped forward. "Mr. Remington, you're under investigation in connection with a false report made to CPS and possible conspiracy to commit custodial interference. We'll need you to come with us for questioning." He didn't resist, just stood there, pale and silent as they let him out. 2 days later, Astrid was arrested. The charges? Child endangerment, coercion, and filing a false report with a government agency. That smug smile she always wore didn't make it past the front steps of Marlene's house. She looked like someone had finally pulled the curtain back. But Marlene wasn't finished. She filed a petition for temporary guardianship of Gideon, claiming Astrid was being unfairly targeted and that I was a vindictive manipulator. She stood in court looking the judge dead in the eyes and said the footage was doctored, that I had created a fake video to smear her daughter. The judge didn't even blink. "Ma'am," she said, "the footage has already been reviewed and authenticated by CPS and law enforcement. Your statement contradicts the evidence as well as the child's own testimony." Marlene's face drained of all color. She left the courtroom in tears. And then came our hearing. It was held in a cold room downtown with fluorescent lighting and a judge who didn't waste time on pleasantries. I sat beside Veronica. Bennett sat alone. Astrid wasn't present, still in custody, pending trial. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth. I told the court how they tried to erase me, how they built a lie so convincing that it nearly destroyed my life. I told them about the fear, the betrayal, and how close I came to losing my daughter over something that never happened. The judge listened silently. Then she turned to Bennett. "You knowingly conspired to deceive a government agency. You allowed false claims of child abuse to proceed, knowing they were fabricated. You endangered your child's emotional well-being and violated your partner's basic rights." "I didn't think it would go this far," he muttered. "But you knew it was a lie," she said flatly. "That makes you just as guilty." Her ruling was swift and firm. Bennett lost all custody rights. Supervised visitation only. Astrid was denied all contact with Gideon, and Marlene found unfit. Gideon was placed in temporary foster care. Justice didn't just arrive, it thundered through the courtroom like a storm. In the days after the ruling, the house felt hollow. I packed slowly, carefully, every box sealed with finality. I didn't want to take the walls or the memories, just what mattered: Alara's drawings, my grandmother's recipe cards, and our peace. With Veronica's help, I filed a civil suit against both Astrid and Bennett for emotional distress, defamation, and damages. The footage, CPS reports, and Gideon's statements were enough to make it airtight. Astrid pleaded guilty in her criminal case. 2 to 3 years in prison, no custody, no contact. Bennett tried to settle privately in the civil suit, probably hoping to bury the paperwork. I refused. I wanted it in court. I wanted it on record. When the civil case concluded, the judge awarded a substantial settlement, enough to move, enough to rebuild, enough to give Alara a new life far away from the lies. I sold the house. We moved north to Flagstaff, Arizona. It's quieter here, cleaner in a way I didn't know I needed. Alara started sleeping through the night again. She laughs more, paints again. The circles under her eyes faded within weeks. As for me, I still wake up sometimes with my heart pounding, thinking I hear Astrid's voice or that someone's at the door with another lie. But then I remember Ariana's voice, steady and certain, saying, "You need to see the rest of this clip." That clip saved my life. Bennett texted me once since the move. He wrote, "I made a mistake." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. No reply, because I don't need revenge anymore. I have something better. I have my daughter. I have the truth. And I have peace.